Welcome to Talk Law Radio with attorney Todd Marquardt of the Marquardt Law Firm at marquardtlawfirm.com.
Welcome back to Talk Law Radio. I'm Todd Marquardt here on 9:30 a.m. The Answer, KLUP, podcasts everywhere, YouTube, Facebook, www.talklawradio.com. Email me if you have questions or if you want me to talk about some hidden legal issue blind spot, and you can reach me at host@talklawradio.com. Angela, before we go to legacy, I wanted to ask you about how you find experts.
Okay, sure. So in my previous job, I did recruitment. And so that kind of has helped me with locating experts. So I do have a network of experts. And if the attorney is needing a specialty, so I had an attorney that needed an ER physician with experience in heat stroke. And so I just had to go through my experts and see if they had that experience. And then I also make sure that are they currently practicing. I check their license as well. And so I present at least 2 to 3 candidates to the attorney for them to do like the final verification on who they want to choose or move forward with.
I would imagine that saves the attorney quite a bit of time.
Yes, definitely.
Mm-hmm. And how about your system for reviewing medical records? What is that like?
So with the medical record, I go through, as I'm going through the record, I'm always like taking notes, and I always work with the attorney. So it helps if I know if there's a focus that I'm looking for. So, if it's a wound case or just determining, what the focus is. So then as I'm reviewing the record, I can look at that. And also as I'm going through the record, I'll identify if there's anything that's missing, any red flags. So I did review a wound care case where the client did not tell the attorney that they were not allowing the nurse to turn them or relieve pressure. So I found multiple instances in the documentation where they were refusing for the nurse to turn them and relieve pressure. And so I pointed that out to the attorney. So just so that they have a full picture of the case, and then they can make the determination on.
You
next
don't
steps.
want to find out a weakness in the case at trial.
Correct.
When I know about that ahead of time.
Yes.
Okay, this is our 4th segment, and you know what that means.
And now, it's time for the Talk Law Radio Legacy Spotlight. What's your legacy? Sponsored by Marquardt Law Firm.
Okay, Nathan, I wanted to ask you about your legacy, but let me give you some different definitions. In the Bible, back in the olden days, they would do a blessing, and this was kind of like the ethical expectations for the children or the family. And then more modern definitions come from, I like this from Mark Landers and Rob Rose. They said, good players leave behind memories, banners, and trophies. Great players leave behind a culture, values, and standards that create a sustainable advantage each year. So that reminds me of like family values. So Nathan, when you think about your family, those who have gone before you, or those who have impacted your life, or the impact that you want to leave, how would you describe legacy in that way?
So for me, of course, it comes down to most closely your family and friends, right? The people you interact with the most. What kind of difference can you make in their lives? A positive difference in their lives. I mean, your parents especially have invested so much time and energy into your growth and development as their child. And so, of course, as you grow older, you want to pay it back to them and try to return as much of that investment and their development as they did into you. And so just keeping a close relationship with your parents, just acknowledging how much gratitude you have for everything that they've done with you. And that goes to your friends as well, who are a big part of your life too, who you're spending a lot of time with, just being the best friend that you can to them, to be there when they need you and to help them as much as you can.
I love that. It sounds like you live a life of service.
That's what I try to do day in and day out, just to make the most positive difference in other people's lives as I possibly can. That's really where I get fulfillment out of my life.
Great. I wanted to give you an opportunity to let the public know how to contact you if they have questions about an injury they may have suffered.
So I recently started my own firm, Surprise Law Firm. It's still a small operation right now, but have had some momentum since I started just last month in March. And so you can easily find me on LinkedIn. If you just type in Nathan Surprise on LinkedIn, you'll see my LinkedIn page. I'll have a website up here pretty soon, surpriselaw.com. You can find me on the Texas State Bar's website under attorney search. Just type in Nathan Surprise. My last name is Surprise, just like the word. It's pretty easy to find me. And my number will be there. Feel free to call me. Always happy to talk about any personal injury issues you have and help however I can.
And it should be easy to remember.
That's true.
I never met anyone named Surprise.
Yeah, me either.
Okay, Angela, same for you. If some attorneys needed to find an easy way to reduce time and expense of analyzing medical records or finding experts, how should they find you?
They can email me. My email is anbarker@covenantlnc.com.
Okay, covenant like the promise?
Yes.
Okay. So we talked about legacy. Let's go back to what we learned in this case. What do you think we learned from Terry Sanderson, the optometrist? Go, Nathan.
What I'd say, and Angela talked about this, and you did as well, is that if you're a plaintiff in a personal injury lawsuit, your life is going to be looked into very closely. And so if you post stuff on social media, that could come back to haunt you in the trial that you may eventually have. And so as we saw with Terry Sanderson, after the incident, he vacationed all over the world and multiple continents, doing all sorts of physical activities. And Gwyneth Paltrow's attorney successfully went through all those different posts, got him to admit to taking all of them, explained what he was doing at every given point in time and all those different vacations. And I feel like that really undermined his credibility as a witness.
I thought it was remarkable that he had an attorney to take this all the way to trial. You know, he had a lot of weaknesses in the case. But maybe they were betting on some type of backlash against Gwyneth Paltrow because of her perceived wealth. Think those were issues?
Yeah, so Terry Sanderson's attorney, he was going to pay them a contingency fee, I believe. That's how it pretty much is almost every single time in a plaintiff's personal injury lawsuit, which means that Terry Sanderson's attorneys only get paid if they get a successful recovery for him. And of course, they weren't able to do that here. And so Terry Sanderson probably didn't have to pay them anything out of pocket for any of the attorney's fees or expenses incurred. His attorneys bore that entire risk. But yes, like you said, they thought maybe they could have gotten a settlement. But then things did not go that way, so they had to try the case. And for the most part, if I have a case, if I'm not able to get the settlement, I'm with the client until the very end. I'm going to try the case. I'm going to do everything I can to get a recovery from the client.
Well, see, I thought the opposite. I thought that he probably went to their office, told them all about his case, and they said, well, sometimes we take cases on contingency, but your case we're not. You're going to have to pay us for every hour of time to take a case like this. That's what I was thinking.
That may be the case, but in almost every personal injury case, it's a contingency fee basis. And so let's say hypothetically that, I know he was asking for about $300,000, but let's just say it's $1 million to make the numbers easier. How that would work is that if they were able to get $1 million recovery, for example, his attorneys would get a 40%, 45%, maybe even 48% cut in attorney's fees from their overall verdict. And so that's a lot of money, much more than may have been billed by hourly, but it just depends on each case.
So they may have thought it was worth the risk.
Exactly.
Okay. Angela, what lessons do you think that we can learn from Gwyneth Paltrow, her side of the case?
So I think it all came down to the experts, you know, hiring those experts, like Nathan had said, that biomechanical engineer. So he explained it so well, and he was just kind of going through how the injury could have occurred, and physics backed up his, the version that Gwyneth portrayed, and just going down to the medical record and looking at, when he's claiming certain injuries, does the medical record back that up? And so I think she had more, experts in her side.
Yeah, and what impresses me about that is that you need money to have a good defense. And even if that's not right, Justice shouldn't be based on how much money you have. If that's the way things are, it might be a prudent thing to save up money just in case somebody comes after you, even if it's a frivolous thing. And so I want to go back to a little bit of something that might help us in our ordinary lives is be an ordinary, prudent person. I know what you're thinking. What are you talking about? Those are strange, archaic words. I'll say it again. Be a prudent person. People often ask me how to protect and preserve their assets. One way for you to protect and preserve your assets is to be an ordinary, prudent person, like Elrond from Lord of the Rings, Fire Marshal Bill from In Living Color, or Disney's Jiminy Cricket. The opposite of the ordinary, prudent person is the negligent person, like Disney's Goofy, always causing accidents. So you heard it here on Talk Law Radio about being a prudent person. I wanted to define that a little bit. CollinsDictionary.com defines prudence as care, caution, and good judgment, as well as wisdom and looking ahead. And ordinary care would mean that degree of care that would be used by a person of ordinary prudence under the same or similar circumstances. So you can protect yourself from lawsuits by being an ordinary, reasonable, prudent person, and you won't have to pay money damages for harm proximately caused by unreasonably imprudent behavior. Nathan, I'll give you the last word.
Yeah, I think that's very well put. I mean, over the course of your life, you may be driving a car and you want to be as prudent and reasonable as possible so that doesn't come back to bite you, whether you're the plaintiff or the defendant. I mean, as we saw in these cases, there's comparative fault. And so even if the other driver is 85% responsible, if you're 15% responsible, that ultimately can reduce whatever recovery you may have in a case.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. It was nice talking with y'all.
Angela, thank you for joining me again. Always a pleasure.
Thank you.
Next week, April 15th, the Honorable Judge Ron Rangel will join me to talk about the need for a reliable and effective criminal justice system and how our robust system of checks and balances gets complicated. We will discuss the typical cast of characters in the justice system at the district court level. And so I'll see you next week, or I'll talk to you later.
This has been Talk Law Radio with attorney Todd Marquardt, brought to you by the Marquardt Law Firm. You can learn more at marquardtlawfirm.com. And be sure to listen to the full Talk Law Radio show Saturday mornings at 11 on 9:30 a.m. The Answer.
Each week, attorney Todd Marquardt talks about the law. His mission with the Talk Law Radio show and podcast is to help you discover your legal issue blind spots. In the beginning, God had one law. Don't eat from the fruit of that tree. Then came the 10 Commandments. Now we have federal, state, and municipal lawmakers that won't stop creating new laws. Laws that might impact you without you knowing it. Listen to the show and drop a line on Facebook or email host@talklawradio.com and let the host know what you think of the show, the topics you want to hear, and whether you want to be a guest.